back to the Unpatched Gaming Podcast, where we share games. I'm your host, Zach.
And I'm your host, Tyler.
We are continuing our lovely series on Nontendo 3D platformers.
Correct. And our series on smoothie-style lactose sours from Wild Mind Ales. And today we have a blackberry banana smoothie style sour. This is Static Spectrum. Really, the only reason I lined this one up is because of our next game. I think the art on here fit the theme. All these TV screens. But blackberry and banana, I didn't realize what this one was, and I am suddenly very excited for it.
Just the color.
Oh,
it's like wine.
Look at it.
Get the
Look
good
at that
stuff
foam.
over here. The good stuff. But yeah, I'm excited to try this one. It's a fun little series of beers. You picked up all these milk influenced smoothie ones.
Yeah, and a little bit of housekeeping right here in the beginning. Well, let's
try it first, man.
Let's try this beer first. I gave myself a higher pour because you typically are a little baby.
That's the word for it.
Little baby Zach.
That straight up just tastes exactly as advertised. I'm not surprised in the slightest.
No, a little more blackberry than banana, but you still get the banana under there. Unlike the last one, I think we said
it's not very sour. Just like a little bit.
No, I wonder if that's because it's pretty much room temp. I don't know if that has an effect on it. We are drinking this almost room temp.
I don't know, like a kettle sour is going to be pretty sour at room temp.
Last week, there were 3 flavors in that one. I do forget what they were, but really only one of them came through. I think it was the mango was pretty much all you could taste from that one. I definitely get the banana under the blackberry here. Mostly blackberry, obviously, though. And surprisingly, not sour. But still delicious. Indeed. So a little bit of housekeeping. I don't remember if we mentioned it last episode, really the schedule we have planned. But if you've been following us on Instagram, I have mentioned it a couple times. The games we're going to be playing. Unfortunately, Cana, Bridge of Spirits, was delayed. But that's also sort of a good thing. Though we really wanted to play Cana. After playing Beyond Good and Evil, which we're going to talk about second here, I think we definitely had the wrong idea. Cana really doesn't look too much like a 3D platformer, and while we were getting similar vibes like that we were getting from Beyond Good and Evil, turns out it's not really a 3D platformer. We're very excited to talk about it and finally have played it, but not really a 3D platformer. So we're going to fill it with something else, that slot. We haven't decided what yet, but it might be another Ubisoft game. Seems like this series is pretty Ubisoft-centric right now.
They used to do some pretty cool stuff, man.
Yes. They still do some interesting stuff, but they really have found where the money is, and they've stayed with that largely. But that's the end of my housekeeping. We are starting with Prince of Persia 2008. Actually, for the longest time, one of my favorite games. I'm very happy I played it again, but it's definitely been knocked down the list a bit for me. I remembered it a little more fondly than I do now after having played it this past week. But it's still doing a lot of really interesting things that we're going to jump into, or Zach is going to jump into.
Yeah. So, real quick recap. This is Prince of Persia 2008.
Yes.
So, this is after the success of the Sands of Time trilogy. This kind of falls into a space where they're trying to figure out what to do with Prince of Persia. This is around the time that the Prince of Persia spin-off that would eventually become Assassin's Creed was reaching the end of development. So basically this is a big transition time for Ubisoft, and they released this game, which takes more inspiration from Team Ico and the indie hits at the time than really anything else Ubisoft has tried for a while on this scale.
Or Prince of Persia at all. Really, I've always thought it was very odd that it was called Prince of Persia. Because it had, first of all, it was a new game, new prince. We actually don't even know if this is a prince. Likely not. and doesn't have anything to do with some like fictional take on some era of history. Like that, they're at least going for a small amount of realism in at least being grounded in reality.
It's grounded in some sort of Persian history.
That's not the case here. This is very high fiction and very high fantasy, and doesn't have anything to do with the previous games. Is not a prince. It involves platforming. That's the only thing that carries it through, and it's not even the same kind of platforming. So the fact that it was called Prince of Persia is very odd.
It only sold 2 million units, which was a huge disappointment based on the budget and what they were hoping from it. And Assassin's Creed sold well over 10 million units, I think. I don't remember exactly how much, but a lot. Assassin's Creed 1 sold a lot.
Rightfully so. In retrospect, we can go back and play that game, and it's rough.
I remember playing the first Assassin's Creed when only 1 and 2 were out.
Yeah.
I played 1 and 2 back to back, and I was enamored. Like,
so
I really liked both those games.
So was I. I put in... So I hadn't finished Assassin's Creed 1 yet. And in the same night, I remember putting in the disc immediately after finishing 1. And it starts literally right there. I couldn't even remember having to get up and switch the disc. It starts immediately right there. Of course, it looks a little better. It's a more open game. But it is one of the most direct sequels I've played. And... also builds on all of its concepts, but the first Assassin's Creed is what I want to mention here. It's such a great concept. Proof of concept, rather.
Fantastic.
It's rough around the edges these days, but it rightfully sold 10 million.
Yeah, the great ideas coming
or whatever that was.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
10 million, that sounds high.
It was a lot. Like, a lot more than I thought the first... Like, I would have thought the second one was the first real hit. But apparently the first one was a big hit.
Don't quote us on that number.
No, don't at all. But it was significantly more than 2 million.
Because I'm thinking of, like... Tomb Raider was a failure at, like, 3 million. But look it up. It doesn't matter that much. It really doesn't matter. But 10 million seems crazy.
Yeah, regardless of how many it was.
It sold a lot, and that's where they were going to go.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Rightly so from a business standpoint, but it's a shame because I really think, especially seeing the epilogue DLC of this game, they could have really made something awesome with this series. This was my first time playing it.
It was my third.
And I think I like it more than Tyler currently likes it. I like this game a lot. It has plenty of problems. And there's like maybe 8 people I would recommend it to.
Yeah.
Like, it's not for everyone. You have to have grown up, because it plays like a PS2 game. We talked about this.
That's a big deal. I'm going to recommend this to our viewers. At the end of the day, we're going to recommend it. But set your expectations, which I did not properly, and he did very quickly. On my third playthrough, I did not. Even though it's on PS3, think of it more akin to like a remastered PS2 game. It does perform similarly, and though it's bigger than most 3D platformers from that generation, some of its shortcomings and technical shortcomings, I'll say it again, do harken back to that era of games. So if you can set your expectations that way, those things might not hit as hard, which will help your experience.
Yeah, and for me, I definitely think that it would be a hard sell for me for quite a few of the people who I know personally who just kind of want to play newer games.
Yeah.
Like, indie titles are easier to sell to nowadays to people because it's just becoming a more modern gaming experience to go back and play kind of smaller games, and people are into it. Playing a game that plays like a PS2 game when the PS5 is out is a little bit harder to sell for a lot of people. So
definitely.
I understand, I get it, but I really like this game. So let's jump right into it.
You did it. You achieved. You have achieved, sir.
I have achieved so much. So I'd like to start talking about platforming. I don't know if you know this. This is a 3D platforming series that we're doing about non-Nintendo 3D platformers.
Is it?
And it's not, because you just looked it up, Beyond Good and Evil. But, no, I do want to talk about the platforming because immediately, like right when the game started, I was unsure if it was a poor, like, just the very beginning. I was unsure if it was a poorly designed video game or just a very different video game, because the prince is not responsive to you. Like, there's not, especially after playing Returnal. I told you this when we first started playing it. Selene is snappy when you play Returnal. Like, immediately cancels what she's doing and responds. The prince carries his momentum. When you press X, he's going to take a second to ready up and jump. Mm-hmm. It's not one of those hold X and let go things. It's we press X and he's going to start his jump and then release. And he is going to go the direction he jumped. You are not changing that. He's going to go the direction he jumped. And at first I was like, okay, I can see what they could do with this, but I'm not sure if this is going to be a problem or not. But as you play, what I discovered about the game, and what I wrote here, is it's a very deliberate kind of platforming. The way that I've seen people describe it is it's a flow-based platforming. It's where you are building and carrying the momentum across a linear platforming challenge from one section of the map to another. And so you'll go from one kind of flat, stable ground, go across a little bit of a platforming challenge, and then you'll land at another flat, stable ground, which will be, for all intents and purposes, a checkpoint for you. And I was enamored with it because, I'm thinking about games like Mario. The thing first comes to mind, with the 3D platformer. Oh, Mario. Mario is he's snappy. Controls are extremely simple, but have a lot of depth, especially in the levels that they're designed in, right? There's a lot of innovation, a lot of ways you can, push at the boundaries of the game with just how Mario moves, right? That's the joy of a platforming in a Mario game. I think of Super Meat Boy, right? A game like that where it is all about the pinpoint precision of the level and your platforming through it. Pinpoint precision in that kind of a game, right? And that's the joy from a game like that. That's not so in Prince of Persia. It's the fun of it is basically engaging in building and carrying through momentum through that's where the platforming challenges.
Bulk of the fun is.
Yeah, and I would argue the best part of the game comes in that way. I was pretty much immediately sold after I kind of figured out what the game was doing on, how it's not so much about being quick and responsive to this. It is about seeing ahead what's happening, any, things that will cause a problem, that'll be too far of a jump you need to engage Elika for, which we'll talk about. But you'll have to kind of know what you need to do a little bit in advance, and even honestly push the button in advance. I was pushing the button well ahead of when he actually grabbed the ring or he actually needed to be thrown across. You kind of got to be ahead of him a little bit because it is maintaining this momentum. And I can't think of other games that do platforming that way. I can't, off the top of my head, that do it with this much commitment to...
I can't think of anything either. Now, you play way more 3D platformers than I do, and I'm actually questioning if another thing on this, suddenly on this list that we've chosen is even a 3D platformer. But anyhow, you play way more 3D platformers than I do, and just from what I have played, I must agree, this is a pretty unique platformer, which is one of the reasons I've preached about it for so long. Really, I've been recommending this game to a few people, not many people, but the people I think would like it, since it came out. I played it twice, back to back, and I haven't played it since. Well, I think I played it in 2010, so not quite when it came out, but I've been preaching about it for that long, and that's one of the things, is it's unique platforming, but also it's platforming in the context of the world that has been built. I still love being there. It's not a world like Skyrim or something, it's not an open world RPG. You're not going to really fully be immersed in it, but you enter into some sort of Zen state when you get those moments of momentum, those bouts of momentum going, and you're able to maintain that through multiple parts in the world. And then the way the world is the way the world is sort of structured really allows for your own flow of gameplay and sort of platforming ideas to flow. And what I mean by that is not game ideas. Like, it's all there. It's structured. You can't really move around it too much. Like in a Mario game, you can't manipulate the physics or anything like that. But it allows just your own thoughts to sort of flow as you play through the game without interruption. If you're good at it, without interruption.
Yeah, and
did you find that stat?
Yeah, it's 8 million.
8 million.
Assassin's Creed 1 sold 8 million copies. So
interesting.
That's a lot.
That is.
In fact, the way they phrase it, it was from an official release from Ubisoft, like a little PDF that they released talking about the success of Assassin's Creed 2, obviously a long time ago. Yeah. And they said, it greatly outstripped our expectations. So yeah, I could imagine that 8 million copies sold for a new IP. That's awesome. Anyway, all that to say, I do agree with you that and even the developers even talk about how they wanted to make a place where players want to be there. But kind of like how the more casual indie games that were coming out at the time, you just enjoyed being there. It wasn't about completing or beating the game. It was about just going through the world and living there and being there, becoming immersed. And they mentioned those games as influences for them, for the design of this game. One of the most controversial things, which we can talk about, is you don't die in this game. You basically,
which I thought was one of the more interesting ideas,
and that was really controversial when the game first came out. As like one of the main "don't bother with this game" selling points for a lot of people is that you don't die. But if the game was released today, I think people wouldn't even bat an eye.
No,
like,
of course not.
Like, there are so many games where death isn't even a part of the game. Like, not even like this one where you technically just reset back to your last checkpoint, which is very frequent. Ellic will just pull you back to your last level ground, basically. She'll fly down and grab you or pull you out of the muck or whatever. There are games where you don't even die now that are widely accepted. So yeah. I think that wouldn't be as much of a talking point anymore.
You mentioned Ellica. I guess we should also jump into that and how she allows for a unique structure to the game to take place. Your sidekick in this game is the princess, and she's got some magical abilities, both that help you with platforming and in combat. She's much more important in combat because of, one of the things we'll talk about when that time comes. In platforming, she's really just presented as a double jump, but it does allow for interesting timing to be considered, because the double jump isn't just like you jumping again. She and again, like Zach said, it's deliberate and even a little slow. She needs to rush over to you through like some magical teleportation, and she'll pull you up in the air and throw you. But depending on how far down in your jump you are and how close you are to that like death floor, whenever finally you do cut off, and that's when the death animation starts, she's going to throw you different distances based on that.
Yeah, and it feel like, again, it's about that feel of that momentum. Like, you're 1, 2, jump off pole, and then like you press the triangle button to call her to help you make that jump that you can't quite make. Mm-hmm. And then you'll fall a little bit, then grab, up, toss. Like, it just has this rhythm to it that feels so nice.
It is very rhythmic. You're right.
I can think of really even the most generic platforming sections where you're just, going across, you have to grab a ring and toss off of it, and, you keep, grab a pole, swing off of it, and you're just there. Even those little tiny moments they have this rhythm to them.
Yeah.
And I think you feel is that you start your jump, you're very slow, then you grab on the wall and ride across it, then you move, and you just maintain this momentum. I know it sounds weird, like that's not even a game, but really just building and maintaining momentum across these wonderful, cool little set pieces that you watch the prince go off of. And at the end of the day, like, as the world increases in difficulty, you might have to jump a little early here, time yourself. Like, there are gameplay elements in there. It's not just, moving and pressing buttons. You do
have to time the jumps.
Yeah.
Because he will just jump, And if you're too far from the platform,
or if you're just hammering the button to jump, he'll like jump too soon, like
way too soon. And because everything is deliberate, everything has very particular spacing, including your double jump. It's not going to assist you and let you clip to the platform, even though you were a little further away. It's not going to give you that forgiveness.
And when you jump off of the wall, you're not going to be able to turn and aim your jump. You jump at the same angle every time, and even if you do your double jump, you will just keep going that direction.
In that direction.
Your momentum will be maintained in that one way, so you can't, cheat the system. It's well designed, man.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. Another thing that I'd like to talk about that is pretty important, unfortunately, to the platforming are the 4 powers that you get in the game. This is definitely one of the weakest parts of the game. Basically, there are 4 different sections of the world, and different portions will open up based on which of these powers that you have. And you get the powers after clearing the boss of a section in the world. There are 4 sections of the world. Each one has 6 areas. There's an intro area, 4 areas that are locked off based off the power you have, and then a final boss fight area. In these, and you have to fight that one boss at every area, at the end of every area.
5 times each.
It's a little rough, but we'll talk about that with combat. But what I wanted to mention is after you clear the area of the boss, the area is populated by these light seeds, these orbs. So now you're not... what I wrote here is you're not progressing through an area anymore. Now you're progressing to a spot in the area. You're trying to get to these orbs. You need to go out of your way a little bit and run up a wall that isn't part of the momentum chain, right? You're now trying to get to something. It's a nice way to recontextualize the area. I think generally it uses it pretty well. What I like to see is that, you have to collect a certain amount, but not all. It's not this painstaking thing.
There's 1,001, and on my last playthrough, I loaded up my PS3 save, which was an odd feeling to pop in a PS3 game and load a save from 10 years ago.
That is weird.
So I had saved at the end of the game, right before you go to the final encounter. I had, I think, 670. So you definitely don't need them all. In fact, I don't even know where another 400 of them would be.
Yeah, but some of them are tricky.
1,001.
Like some are hidden under platforms that you wouldn't think to drop down from. Like they do a good job. All that to say that it's a very forgiving game, and when you get a certain number of orbs, you can go and grab one of these powers. 3 of them are functionally the same. Mm-hmm. One of those 3 does it far more painfully. So basically, there are 2 of the powers. The blue power, you land on all of them. You have to land on a little circle panel, like a blue circle panel, a green one.
And then Elika will activate her magic, and you'll go somewhere else.
Yeah, and so in the case of the blue magic, you fly over to another section of the temple, basically, or the area that you're in.
You're carried over there.
Yeah.
It's like a little flying animation, but you are not actually doing any gameplay.
No, Elika is flying you over there.
Yeah.
And then there are red panels, which you jump to another area of the map. It's
almost
functionally
exactly
the same. It just takes less time for the red animation to happen than the blue.
Yeah.
And then the yellow panels, you will fly from one area of the map to the other. But in this instance, you actually have to control it.
This is the worst part of the game.
And so, it's terrible. So it's a rails thing, and you can just move in a couple different directions to dodge, bricks or things that are in your way.
Yeah.
And if you hit them, you have to start over. All 3 of those things, though, do the exact same thing. You are just going from one section of the map to the other via magic. It's pretty underwhelming and discouraging. One that's pretty cool, I think, is the green one, in which you run up walls. So now you're having to avoid obstacles and pitfalls. You're just basically like why am I blanking on the name of those runners?
An infinite runner.
An infinite runner, basically. It's just not infinite. You just have to dodge, dodge the pitfalls, dodge the obstacles in your way.
But they present it in a pretty interesting way that's almost like that 360 view from Glitch in Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of that. So if you saw our footage of Glitch, and you might see it here too, I can't remember if we captured B-roll for it. it's presented in that way. So I like those tight environments with the 360 view, again, like in Ratchet and Clank. And it's doing a little bit of that here. And it is the most interesting of the abilities. I would still be fine without it.
Agreed.
And maybe if we just had the red one, I think that would be fine.
Yeah, because, I mean, that way you get your set pieces in. You can jump and fly through these big areas, you know.
Yeah.
You get your big set pieces in, you know, you're good. I think that...
if there was just that one ability and they could just have different animations.
So what I noticed about it is...
based on the power that Elika is currently
it's
wielding.
very old school design in the sense that modern games will typically just give you a new power that you can use anywhere. This is very old school PS2 style within those limitations where you just have a certain area where you can now use this ability to progress. You have to get onto this exact panel. You know what I mean? And only at these panels can you activate your power. I would have liked to see them do something more focused on, okay, now you can do this new kind of jump, or you can choose to... Something that'd be really cool is there are these little rings. You can, like, on your way to grab them, jump, like, basically keep moving and swing yourself off the ring.
Yeah, they allow you to continue your wall running momentum.
Or, like, what they could do is instead of just pressing circle, you can press a different button, and now he'll jump away from it, or, like, you know, do something maybe just immediately yank himself up if he's going,
to change the direction,
like, change the direction, maybe, like,
momentum.
You know, getting something that will do that, so now you have more considerations as you move through the flow of the game. I think something like that would have been cool.
They would have needed to change, and I'm not saying I wouldn't want that either. They probably would have done that in the sequel, but they would have needed to change the structure of the whole world as well to allow for that.
Yep, they'd have to basically... I mean, you're stripping out all these 4 panel colors.
Yeah.
And this is just what you'd put in instead, in my mind. You know what I mean? So... Yeah, they're definitely... It has its problems, but that core platforming carried me very easily to the end of the game.
It is very good. Now, we said something that I'd like to clarify. I said that it was unforgiving, and you said that it was forgiving. We're talking about 2 separate things. The actions you are performing, like jumping and your double jump, those are pretty unforgiving. You have to time those correctly.
When you have committed to it, it is done. There's no going back.
When, like, the window of time you have to press circle and continue your momentum with the ring, the amount of time you have to press triangle when you land on one of those circle plates for Elika's power, and the amount of time you have... Those are the only 2 things that really require timing, right?
Jumping off of a surface is a little bit tighter.
Well, those 2 things, those have huge windows and are pretty forgiving, and we'll see some of that in combat as well.
And it's forgiving in terms of how close the checkpoints are typically.
That is true.
Like, if you mess up, you'll be able to get right back on it.
Yeah, the challenges that are between each checkpoint are really short, but usually once you can get through them, they feel so good.
And there are some interesting ways. I don't think the game does a fantastic job of telegraphing what's next all the time. I think the DLC really cleans that up. There are some times where it's like, okay, I barely had enough time to react to that, or to do that right, or to realize, oh, I'm not supposed to jump off this wall, I'm supposed to slide down it. Like, there are a couple moments I'm like, okay. But typically it's pretty good. And one of my favorite ways it telegraphs something to a player is if you're about to die, the screen starts to go black and white. So you're like, oh, I can't make that jump, and you press Elika, and she'll throw you off to the next platform or whatever. If you've timed it incorrectly, where you normally could have made it. If you timed, like, let's say there are 2 pillars, you have to jump from one to the other. One might be shorter while the other is longer. If you jump while too low on this other pillar, you won't be able to catch the other one. Well, the screen will tell you that. It'll sort of go black and white, and you can get your double jump in, and she'll throw you up to that pillar. Yeah,
even though it didn't require a double jump, you just timed your jump incorrectly and can be saved.
It'll just tell you that, by starting to go black and white. I think it's an excellent way to telegraph something to the player. And it's just long enough to where you can miss it if you're not really focused and paying attention. Like, it's just long enough to where if you were just kind of going through the motions, you'll miss that telegraph.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that. Because
I agree. I think it's a perfectly timed amount of time.
It's very expertly timed, but I probably had a harder time with both the platforming and combat than you did, just because my reaction times are a little low. So it really boils down to being a set of quick time events in the middle of platforming, which is, I'm not saying is a bad thing, but every ring, you press the circle button. Every time you need a double jump, you press the triangle button. And every time you are jumping off something, you press the X button. It's very simple, but those are introduced in particular patterns, so you've got to memorize the pattern to get through that platforming section while maintaining your momentum, and it's the pattern recognition that allows you to maintain the momentum. And it's fun. That's where sort of the rhythmic structure comes into play. It is not a rhythm game.
Yeah.
But memorizing those patterns and just like getting in a flow state is what the game
when you
is
start
doing.
to throw, when the wrenches start getting thrown in, then you have to start even timing when you jump off of it, and like you become part of that timing equation. Like it's not just a static quick time at that point. Now it's far more dynamic. It's like, now I need to decide when I jump off this pole and how I jump off this wall and when to hit R2 to start sliding down.
Yeah. And and R2. Yeah, that's one. You can use your really, really cool gloves here, these claws, to just slide down any surface.
And you can basically, anytime you're on a wall, you're running across the wall, if you want to just start sliding, just hit R2 and whoosh, you'll start sliding down with great, might I add, fantastic sound design for those claws.
Yeah.
That stood out immediately to me. When you are running across a wall, he'll gently scrape his hand across it, and when he's using his claw hand, just these little it sounds great.
It's really good. What is not very good about that falling is the animation for it, because you can steer that fall and you've got to dodge things. That's part of the platforming as well.
That, yeah.
when you shift directions, he moves his hips and knees to it makes sense if you think about it. It makes sense. He's using his lower legs to jerk his momentum in that direction. It just looks really weird.
It looks goofy, yeah.
Yeah, it's very goofy. But you mentioned when they start throwing wrenches in there.
Well, let's if you don't mind, let's do combat real quick first, because I think that'll go really well into the world discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that'll go really well in there. But let's just real quick. I don't think we'll have to talk too long about combat, but you mentioned it earlier, so take it away.
Sure. So combat is actually it's not the best part of this game. It is one of my favorite things about this game, which I don't think you're going to agree with.
I definitely think the platforming is significantly better.
It is better.
For me, significantly. And the combat, I can tell if there was more of this combat, I'd be sick of it. But it's there just often enough.
Just often enough. And we're going to talk about the DLC. I've never played it.
It'll be a separate little discussion.
It will be a separate little discussion. It's very interesting. But what's presented in the main game is there just often enough, like Assassin's Creed was just
a Templar here or there.
No,
I'm talking about Assassin's Creed 1.
A concept. It was a proof of concept, and Assassin's Creed 2 took that
I thought you meant the
to
timing.
whole nother levels. The proof of concept here, I think, is great. It's unlike anything else I've played, and the only thing I can think of that might come close, though I don't know because I haven't played Pirates, is Sid Meier's Pirates. From what I see, that seems like what it's sort of going for. It is one-on-one dueling. Well, I guess two, because Elika helps you, and she's much more involved in combat. Because just like platforming, all of your face buttons, I don't think square is involved, or X, whatever the equivalent is.
No, X is your air acrobatic, so your jump attacks.
No, in platforming.
Yeah, which is your jump.
Okay,
how they correspond. Square, yeah. Square has nothing to do in platforming.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're playing on PlayStation. Platforming only uses 3 of the face buttons. Here, it uses all of the face buttons and R2. So it's going to feel very familiar. But each of them do something else. Square, I think that's right on PlayStation. Square is your attack.
Melee.
Circle is your dodge.
Grab.
X is your...
Grab,
that's
grab.
right. That's right. A is your acrobatic or dodge, depending on the direction you're pressing it. And triangle is Elika. And you can, literally throw her at the enemy. If you're up in the air, she might toss you higher. She might jump off of the enemy and then come in the air and toss you higher. So then maybe you can press the attack button and you'll come swinging down with your sword. What each of these buttons does is... each of these attack types does is flow into another animation that allows for a few openings of whatever the next animation could possibly be, but attack type that is. But they flow together in such a seamless combo. I really love how it looks, how it feels when you can master one of those large combo chains. Almost spilled this.
But once you master one, it's pretty much all you need.
Yeah, you do break the game a bit once you can memorize, and they're easy to memorize.
Yeah, because it's a simple combo tree. It's ending in an attack in a melee, ending an attack in an Elika hit. So with triangle, will let you start a new tree. So you can either then go into a grab combo or a... I think it's like an aerial combo or something, and then the grab combo will let you lead into an aerial combo, which will finish it. Like there are a couple trees.
And if you look at the combo list, there are a few different combos before your chain is broken. Some of them just end the combo, so it might be attack, 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 attack. That'll end the combo. You haven't really done anything interesting there. But if you attack, grab, and use Elika, that will allow you to go into another kind of combo. And it'll say, does it allow you to go into now new aerial attacks? Does it allow you to continue Elika attacks? And then you go over to the Elika attack list and see how you can then extend that combo. And one of those might end in now an acrobatic combo. So you go to the acrobatic list, you can then see what the small trees are there. And I think the highest is 26 attacks. But once you can get those lined up, it feels so good.
But what's interesting is the limiter there is you're always in a different arena size, and if the enemy pushes you to the edge or to the wall, you'll have to button mash to get out of it. Mm-hmm. If you push them to the wall, if it's just a normal enemy, you get an instant kill. So your combo will slowly push them toward the wall. So if you can get them all the way to the wall, it's an instant kill. Bosses, though, you want to avoid pushing them to the wall because they will immediately get a reset behind you with your back to the wall now.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is lure the bosses as far away from the edge as possible so you can maximize...
close to the opposite edge.
Yeah.
So your back is against that edge, get your attacks in, and you're pushing them all the way across the arena, and hopefully getting the whole combo.
It's the opposite of fighting games. The longer your combo goes on, the more damage you do. So it's like the opposite of a fighting game, basically, where your combo will decrease, damage will decrease over time. So it's really, really interesting. I really like the system overall. It's just, it's a little bit too basic, I think.
It is. I must agree.
They do throw some interesting wrenches in there, like when the enemy gets a bunch of tentacles around them, then only Elika can do the first hit on them. So you have to find a way to get Elika to do that first hit. Mm-hmm. When the enemy is glowing blue, and you try to attack with Elika, they'll throw Elika to the side, and you have to now go touch her to get her back up.
Yeah, which is why she's way more involved in combat. She directly influences your combos, and if your
combos are way shorter without her.
Yeah,
way shorter.
If a boss can do that without glowing blue. Some bosses will just hit her out of the way, depending on how the combo has flowed. And if that happens, she's on the other side of the arena with the boss in the middle of the two of you. And you've got to get back over there to wake her up. One, she won't save you immediately. And you can't use her attacks. And we didn't mention that either. Just like in platforming, you can't die in combat. She will save you, but if you miss the quick time event here to get out of the death animation, then she'll come save you, but the boss's health will be reset. Not always all the way, to the beginning, but huge chunks. It'll set you back very far, and it's just important to have her around so you can get out of those things quicker. And yeah, I think that's why she's more involved in combat.
I agree, and I think it's a great decision because that way it can, quote unquote, punish you for doing poorly without having to kill you, without having to totally reset you.
And in a sequel, I could see something happening, that concept being extended, much like Transistor, actually. Each of the attacks are a face button, and when you die, one of them is you forfeit one of them. But what if you're disarmed? Like your sword is thrown off to the side. Now, just like you have to go get Elika, like sort of help her up, you gotta go pick up your sword. Or maybe they if you don't do something correctly, they can grab your gauntlet and throw it off.
Which is your grab.
Yeah. Those things could have been implemented maybe in a sequel to extend combat a bit, flesh it out just a bit, and maybe throw another enemy in there, see how that plays. I'm sure they did.
It's a great system.
I'm sure they
like
did.
you said, I would love to see it more robust.
Yeah.
I don't know if they kept it simple just because that's what they were going for, that more kind of inviting game feel, or if they kept it simple just because they didn't have time, didn't have that focus. I don't know.
And unfortunately, so I just picked this up. I haven't had it for very long, like really just a couple days. There's the making of Prince of Persia in here. It's one of the worst special features I've ever watched. Especially, I've been spoiled these days. We live in a post no-clip world here. But even like the Skyrim, the making of Skyrim that came bundled with that collector's edition, the Double Fine adventure from Two Player Productions, or anything Two Player Productions. I guess I'm just spoiled and I expected more, but if you are interested in something like this, for the sake of the special features in there, it's an 11-minute early 2007 YouTube video that some guys in the studio made. It doesn't tell you really anything. It tells you what combat is like. It doesn't tell you about the iterations that it's gone through, how we arrive to these decisions. Honestly, nothing interesting.
Definitely look for interviews from the producer. That's who you're going to look up. Look up the producer. I forget his name, but look him up and look up interviews from him on the game. That is lots of good information in there. That's where I've found a lot of the best information for this game.
Now, what is in this, which I don't know why it's not on the internet in high definition, but that Siguras trailer I showed you from E3 is a beautiful trailer. It's on this Blu-ray in 1080p, which is not online, so I might upload it.
Yeah.
Just 'cause I like game trailers. I like well-presented trailers. They do a lot. Like The Master. Do you remember the trailers for The Master?
Of course. How will I ever forget the trailers?
Those trailers
for The Master?
and the first two trailers for Man of Steel, I think, are some of the best trailers ever. When you can not give away anything about the movie, but immerse you in the trailer just as much as the movie is doing, that's great.
That's good stuff.
The trailer does that here. But the highest definition that you can find is on this Blu-ray, so I might upload it for folks, just because it's so good.
You should.
Yeah. I'll tell you about this later. Never mind.
So I just wanted to wrap up combat real quick with 2 points. Number one, you can actually prevent enemy spawning. So not boss, but enemy spawning if you are fast enough and successful enough in your platforming run to that little arena. So it'll let you know, it'll kind of go dark a little bit and you'll see a little swirl that the enemy's about to spawn. And if you can get through the platforming section quick enough and with consistency, carry your momentum, don't miss anything, don't have to restart, don't wait too long, you can just hit that little spawn point and they will not spawn. So it's like a reward for strong platforming.
You attack it.
Yeah.
Or you can run past it. You can just keep going.
Oh, but
either.
Why would you
either
not hit it though? It's so satisfying.
It is very satisfying.
He does this little spinny thing and
his sword is so cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. The only other thing I'd like to mention about combat, we'll mention it more in the epilogue, but the combat overstays its welcome hard in the DLC. Not because I have already played it the whole game. That has nothing to do with it. The combat immediately overstays its welcome just in the DLC period. Yeah,
which is one of the more interesting things I think about the DLC is the contrast to the game proper. Whereas here in the DLC, you get to see all that this iteration of the platforming is capable of.
Yeah.
It really shines there. It disregards two of the powers. It adds a brand new one, which honestly is my favorite.
Yeah, it's like a time trial thing, basically. Actual platforms will spawn into the world.
Yeah, they're magically spawning platforms, but what I think is the best thing about them is that unlike the rest of the platforming in the game, where you can look at it and sort of assess the battlefield and know what you're going to do, all of this is on the fly and requires mastery of the system.
Because it won't all spawn at once. It'll this portion will spawn.
Some things will spawn mid-jump, literally
as you are jumping. You just have to go, well, I hope it's going to show up.
Yeah.
You kind of see the sparkles a little bit,
and
maybe.
It requires a mastery of the system, as rudimentary as it is. It still requires a mastery to get through.
It has no flying sections. They figured out that was terrible. They just ripped out all the flying sections.
It's got the 2 jumpy ones. No, it's got all 3 of them.
No, it's got everything but the yellow.
That's right. Yeah,
everything but the yellow.
So this is replacing the yellow. That's great.
Yeah.
The running one has some better sections in there.
The puzzles are better. The
puzzles they're huge platforming puzzles.
Yeah, which is great because all the puzzles in the base game have nothing to do with platforming.
Yeah, they're generic puzzles, fill this pool all the way up, but all these other 6 pools only fill a very particular way.
Yeah,
that's the worst one.
I don't know. I really just from the tedium, not the difficulty, the tedium of the one with at the windmill, where you have to. I didn't actually
finish the game. I didn't say that. I didn't finish the game on this run. I did.
You've played it twice before.
I have, and then I went back and played the ending and DLC again, because we weren't planning on playing the DLC until halfway through the week, and I was like, okay, fine. So I'm gonna forget these 2 sections. I'll go finish the end of the game. So I loaded up my save on PS3 and then played it. Which, when we're talking about this, you'll see if you're watching a noticeable drop in quality of the B-roll. That's because the ending and the DLC were captured on PS3 rather than PC. But I didn't do all of that, the windmill stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty tedious. And basically there are these all the puzzles have this little mechanism you have to rotate. It's like a little lever, and Elika has to be with you.
I did do those.
Yeah, and
those are bad.
And basically, you have to push first of all, in order to keep turning, you have to keep holding it the same way. You can't it's not classic rotation.
Oh yeah.
You have to keep holding it the same way, and you have to wait for Elika to come and grab it for you. And sometimes she will not. She will stand over there and wait, and she will have to teleport spawn. The game goes, okay, this is not working, and has to just teleport her over to you, and it takes 3 full seconds. And you have to turn these things 50 times.
Yeah. So the best example of this, and it might get more complicated, but the easy example, there are 4 pillars, each with a number of platforms coming out of them that you can jump off of and run on, but it might have one on each side. All 4 sides, or it might just have one. But these levers that you're turning, these handles you're turning, turn 2 of these large pillars in whatever combination. So you have to, turn one, get it lined up, jump to another, turn that, thinking about the next 2 that you have to turn, and get them all lined up so you can finally run across them in the circle and get to the other side.
It's pretty terrible.
The puzzles in the DLC are
much better.
You're moving entire sections of the level, and really there's one spot that it does this
really well.
Very well. You're moving, there's 3 entirely new paths to go through, or 4 maybe.
Yeah,
in this
4. There's
one
a
room.
hidden one, you can do 4.
And you're moving huge chunks of the
It's 2
level.
Basically it's 2 big blocks that are platformable, and you are moving them closer or further, and you're moving a pole either diagonally or perfectly straight on, depending on how you want to jump onto those platforms. And depending on how far away you move them or how close you move them, it basically becomes an entirely new platforming section and leads to an entirely different part of the map. Yeah. And you're having to figure out, how do I get to the spot I need to get to? And it's well telegraphed. You figure out what's going on very quickly. And the platforming is integrated into the puzzle. They had it. That was it.
It isn't so much of a puzzle that you really have to think about it. It's really okay, I see this is a slightly different path. I'll do this one now, then I'll do the other one.
Yeah, it's very well telegraphed.
It's not a brain teaser sort of puzzle like the pools we were just talking about or the pillars.
But it fits the game so much better.
It does, and I think, I could be very wrong, but I think they did some of that in Sands of Time, which we're not going to fill the extra slot I mentioned in the beginning with Sands of Time. We are going to wait till the remake comes out, I think in February. I've played that a few times as well. Another one of my favorite.
Wow.
Yeah. yeah, I have. And he has not played it.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to share that one as well and, experience the remake with the rest of you. But I think they did some of that in the original, and I remember it working very well, so I don't know why.
I've heard very good things about the platforming and the puzzles in Sand of Time, so I'm excited to play it. All that to say, the epilogue typically does things really well. But the combat?
Yeah, this is... Oh, I didn't finish the thought.
It is the same 2 bosses breaking up your progress every single time. There's no variation. The arena changes. Who cares? There's no variation.
And the arena the arena only changes twice. So it's like just a regular arena. You can throw them off on either side, or one with just one small opening that you have to throw them through. But it's the king again, so Elika's dad that you fought at the end of the first game, and then 2 bosses that share one body. You have to bring one of them to the end, and then it will transform into the other boss. But it's the same 2. They don't shuffle that mixture of the 4 bosses from the original game.
Those 2 every time. Soldier and the hunter.
They're the 2 that they seem to like the most. All the marketing was based on those 2, especially the hunter. A lot of the marketing was on the hunter, but the hunter and the warrior were the 2 from the marketing. I wonder if they had the most polish. I don't remember.
The Alchemist was cool.
I think the hunter's my favorite. It lets the combat shine a little more. I think it's a little more
aggressive.
He's
you can
aggressive,
be more aggressive, yeah.
So I liked him, but you're doing that same thing over and over and over again, and it's really just tired.
And I mean, not 3 or 4 times. I mean, 10 plus times.
Yeah, it's exhausting, and that's I didn't finish this thought from earlier. That's one of the things that's so interesting about the DLC to me. You get to see what this iteration of the platforming is capable of, but also see just how bad the combat actually is. And again, I think the foundation is great, but it was in the base game just enough to not feel like it really overstayed its welcome. By the second time you did the thing in the DLC, it overstayed its welcome.
So, all that to say, you should play the DLC anyway. The platforming is very so good. It's so good.
I do wish, this is a nitpick here.
Do it.
But the game proper is gorgeous. I love the 2 open environments with the soldier and the alchemist.
Even the hub, just this really Shadow of the Colossus-y open expanse with these odd structures that at the time you don't understand what they're for, and it's a long walk.
A very long walk.
And I like it.
It's great. It's the same environment. I think they might shift it slightly just once about halfway through. They introduced some trees, but it's still this huge underground cavern. They could have shaken that up a bit.
You're talking about the DLC.
Yeah, the DLC is for all intents and purposes the same kind of dreary environment for the 2 hours.
Classic underground tomb.
Yeah, you can really finish it in one setting.
Yeah, and you should. I'd argue.
Yeah,
I think it's meant to be.
If you break that and then come back to it, you might not want to finish it.
Yeah.
I recommend if you do play it, just one sitting.
So the next thing that I want to talk about is the world, because I'm kind of talking about this in the order that things kind of revealed themselves to me as I played the game. The first thing that stood out was the platforming, then I started thinking a little about the combat, and then for me it was the world. Because what happens is, as you're in, remember it's split into 4 areas, as you progress more through each area, the boss of that area, about half, for some it's halfway through, for some it's near the end, they'll throw in a new thing. So the first one that happened for him was the soldier. He slammed his fist on the ground and these tentacles started bursting out of the wall in the middle of these platforming sections. So you basically had to time when you need to cross, either jump through that section or run across that section. Otherwise the tentacles would burst out and grab you. And it's a consistent timer. The tentacles would burst out at the same time everywhere. It's okay, this is pretty cool. What I didn't realize is that now those tentacles have appeared across the entire world.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now the entire world is populated.
Sorry, our pup is here.
Good pup. He's a good boy. The entire world is now populated with these tentacles in different spots. The same thing will happen at the Alchemist. There's this kind of slow loss of health.
I think that's the best one.
I agree. I think that one's really good. I also like the one for the Concubine, where it's this little butterfly that'll chase you, and if you let it catch up to you, it'll just knock you off the stuff that you're on.
Is that what happens? I honestly didn't know what that was.
I
had
waited.
no idea.
Yeah, it didn't catch me ever, but so I stopped. I was like, okay, what happens? And it doesn't kill you, but like if you're standing on top of a platform, it'll like knock you down. If you try to stand back up, it'll just keep where you're hanging on the side. So you have to like shuffle away. It's really inconvenient. Like you don't want this thing to catch you. It's really inconvenient. That's really good. The Hunter does one that's basically just the tentacles, but instead of being stationary, they move up and down. Or
they're slugs that crawl on the wall.
But it performs the same function. But what's interesting is basically every time one activates, it now activates across the whole world. So it actually changes the way that you can progress through the game. My game looked different than Tyler's because of when I found those things.
Yeah.
But it lets me choose where I want to go whenever I want to go there, but also increases the difficulty over time at a steady pace.
Yeah, it's really smart.
It's really smart design. Yeah, I'm really impressed by it.
I like him.
He's a good boy.
Bud. I didn't like really any of those except for the one from the Alchemist. So the slow loss of health. It's like in part of the level there are these
flecks,
shards
like
that you're breathing in, and you're not really losing health. You don't have health in this game, but you will die. Elika will bring you out of the entire platforming section, but you have to get through it in a certain amount of time. So again, that's where some of the mastery of the systems comes into play. You got to get through there. You have to know that section, and you have to get through it quickly. What I would have preferred, because both of those other things make you, the slugs and the tentacles, they make you stop and wait for the timing to... They break your momentum intentionally.
They do, and I don't think that's too much of a problem just because now timing is so much more significant to the platforming, and when you can time it right, when you plan it out right, you can still maintain your momentum through the thing.
Yes, but you've got to stand at the beginning to do that. You have to stand at the beginning or wherever some of the stopping points are and wait for a very particular opening and then go, which is fine. And that's true of both of those other things. And I guess the butterfly, which is inconvenient.
More of a rush thing. It's more of a rush thing, like the flex.
Oh,
you should just rush
which
ahead
I prefer,
of it.
The rushing things. But I think they could have implemented another part of that, quick time sort of aspect. The slugs, maybe you have to... the circle is there. You press circle to then swing. This is now maybe another part where you could press X to put your sword in the wall and sort of use that to further your momentum or climb up in some way like the rings do, and then with the tentacles maybe do something with Elika. So it's not about the timing, it's about that rhythmic structure that we talked about. I think they could have doubled down on that.
It'd be a lot harder to design, but it'd be good. I can see where you're coming from. I guess I don't mind it. I did I don't know, I just felt really accomplished maintaining momentum when I could. Sometimes I couldn't. Sometimes I just had to wait and make it work. But when I could really do it, I felt really good.
Sure. The only times I really felt good about it was in the DLC. There's
Definitely
huge sections that are based on all of those things, and a combination of all of them. Was the butterfly there? I forget. Okay. It never caught me, so I guess I've never known what that butterfly does.
Yeah, and it's not as frequent as the others, but there's one section in the Hunters area where it's I wonder what this does. I just stood there and waited for it, and it just...
I thought it was just part of the world.
Just nudges you off. It's really weird. Huh. That's the concubines thing.
No,
but
I really like that rhythmic structure based on those sort of quick-timey elements, which I don't want to say that as some sort of derogatory term. It makes it feel really good once you can get that flow going. All right, ring, double jump, wall jump, wall
and that's
slide,
why I
ring.
like the other aspects being there, because now timing is part of that, and the timing's more on you now. I like the sections way more often than DLC where, hey, don't just finish your wall run, hit R2 and start sliding down at the right moment, like the exact right moment, giving you more control in certain sections. So I can see the benefits of both, but I really like what they did.
Okay.
So the last thing that stood out to me, because I really didn't care about the story.
No.
Everybody that I knew, like Matt McMuscles, I always bring him up, but I mean, a couple other guys that I watched, like they're all like, "Oh, this is probably one of the best stories. I really like this one." And I'm like,
what are you talking about?
What are you talking about? Like, I'm just straight up at the beginning of the game. The prince is Nolan North, and
he is just Nolan North.
Yeah, he is just
period
Nolan North, and it's ridiculous because he will. I mean, he's exactly what you'd think, the roguish, quip spouting guy, and he's just a pain a lot of the time. And Elika's the actual one who cares and tries. So he figures out what's happening, that Ahriman, the Dark Lord or whatever, is released, and he stays and helps Elika through these like massive trials. I'm like, you have not given me any reason to believe this jackwad would stay here and help this chick. Yeah. Like, sure, he's horny, but there's no way that he's that horny. Like, there's just no way. I didn't believe it at all. Like, not even a little bit. And I don't know, I just really struggled.
And the lines are really cheesy, and I think Nolan North is absolutely the wrong person to be in this role.
Did you tell me he said that too?
I don't know if that's true. In one of the videos we were watching, someone said that there was an interview with Nolan North saying, I don't really think I should be doing this, or like, I think I should do a different voice, but they just wanted him to do Nathan Drake.
Nathan Drake, yeah. Listen.
And that's true. He shouldn't have.
Yeah, and the problem is it comes off as like watching a modern Indiana Jones quip back and forth. It is Uncharted. Like, it doesn't embrace the setting very much. You know what I mean? All of that to say, the ending hit me like a truck.
It's very good.
So the whole premise of the story you figure out is that Elika's dad, Elika died, and to bring her back, he decided to release Ahriman in return for bringing her back to life, and that's why she has magic powers and stuff. So at the end of the game, you've gone all this way with her, you beat Ahriman, and she gives her energy back to the tree to seal Ahriman, and the whole world starts to be restored. And the game makes you, this is where I see a lot of Team Ico too in this, is the game makes you carry her at a snail's pace. I mean, he's walking like a human being. He's not running around.
And the credits are rolling right here.
And
it's so good.
And the music is playing, like really soft, somber music. And you carry her out to this little... It's basically like a sacrificial altar, almost, is what it looks like. Like an old school sacrificial altar that has been outside the whole time. And you're like, wonder what that's for. You just think about it. You see it up there. Like, oh, I wonder what that's for. And you lay her down on it. And you look out and the camera pans out. And you see these 4 weird buildings that you had no context for, very Shadow of the Colossus-y, like, why is this here? And they have sprouted trees, 4 beautiful, brilliant, living, vibrant trees, and you know exactly what is about to happen. And it is a long run to each of these little sections. You have to platform your way up. It's very short platforming.
Yeah.
But you got to run all the way out there, and you got to cut down each tree one at a time, and the whole time you hear like all the Ahriman voices saying it was never your choice, like talking about Elika, like it's never been her choice to sacrifice herself because of these 2 men who just can't let her go, that they lack the strength of the respect for her, the strength of character to not have her in their lives. But like, it makes you go, I probably would have cut those trees down. Like you just think it to yourself. You're like, I don't know. So you cut them all down, and the disappointment on her face.
Oh, dude.
When she comes back, and Ahriman just swells back to life and consumes the whole land, and the game straight fades to black.
Yeah.
What a strong,
it's very
bold
good
ending. I really, really respect it a lot. I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed the ending of this game. It straight up bumped this game up a whole slot in my mind. I really, really enjoy it. So that's what the final thing that stood out to me. It made me think of other little things. Like, they take the time to animate you and Alika switching places, you'll do this little like,
Oh, yeah.
little
Those are
movement
really
together. When you climb on vines, she'll snap to your back and hold on to your back, and she's like her feet are up in a little way. It's like this really intentionally designed way that you two perform the platforming together. It's very much in unison, and the rhythm is together. I that stood out to me even more after this ending. I was able to pick those things out even more particularly. Those little tiny things.
You have to account for her sometimes in the DLC.
You do.
I would like wait at a spot and one of those slugs are coming over, and then it would head back and I would need to do a thing.
Oh, that happened to me too.
But then she would come and like make me switch. The prince would be like, "Oh, you need to be over here, okay," and then he would move in that direction and get hit by the slug. So you have to account for her during some of those challenges. She's like a physical part of the world that you need to be cognizant of.
And I think if they did it any other way, that ending wouldn't have worked. Like, I think those little intentional moments of design really, they hit home way harder than any sort of cheesy dialogue.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Which you can skip almost all of. Pretty much all of the dialogue in this game is optional. There's a dedicated dialogue button. Anytime you want to, get some exposition, you can press the exposition button and it'll be dumped on you. But optionally. And it's great. There are very few parts where you're actually given some, thread to the narrative. It's really just during right before or after the boss fights. But anything else, like when you're going through a part of a decrepit castle, you can stop to talk to her and learn about it. It's all optional and it's great.
Yeah,
I like that aspect a lot.
Me too. Well, that's really it for me, man. That was Prince of Persia.
That was Prince of Persia. I'm happy you finally got to play it. I'm glad you like it as much as you do. It's down a little bit for me now, just because of, I think, our different philosophies. I think I liked it as much as I did because of the reasons you like it now. And I've sort of shifted some of my philosophies. Like, I see some of the problems more than I see some of the promises, the potential there. And that's what has knocked it down for me. But that said, I think maybe I'm coming back to a better middle ground recently, certainly through the course of this podcast. So that's good. I don't think I'll always be as positive as you are. I am a bit of a
very
cynical a-hole.
Very few people are.
I'm coming back around, and I do appreciate it, though not as much as I once did. I'm happy you do, though.
Absolutely.
Very happy.
Want to take a quick break?
Let's do that. We'll be back in a second. If you've made it this far, I gotta ask that you give us a like and a subscribe here on YouTube. Maybe a review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on, and maybe consider following us on Instagram as well. That's really where our efforts are focused on social media. Having a lot of fun over there, building a community there as well. But the community we really want to build is on Discord. We've got a small community growing. It is growing slowly but surely. You can join us there through our $2 tier on Patreon. Just $2 to help us maintain some of this, better camera, better mics, things like that. Maybe some advertising on Instagram, but just to keep the lights on. Literally the lights. Sometimes the light bulbs die. We just had to replace some, so literally keeping the lights on. Anyway, we'd love to have you there on Discord. Come join us on Instagram as well, and we'll see you back in about a second.
Welcome back. We are ready to talk about this platformer.
That's what you could call it if you've never played it.
Yeah, no, I mean, we put it here because, A, we've been interested in it a long time, but you and I both were under the impression that it just was.
Yes.
Like, we had heard people refer to it as
I knew there was combat in it and some stealth in it. I thought it was a 3D platformer with some of those elements.
And you look at it, I mean, for guys on video, look at this. It looks like a 3D platformer.
Yeah.
From that era.
Definitely. Not so much the cover, but some of the B-roll. It looks like it could very well be that, but that definitely did it a bit of a disservice, I think. Sure, it's colorful, it's whimsical, it's coming from the team that made Rayman. I think they just wrapped up Rayman 2.
Yeah, so actually for this game, what had happened is Rayman 2 was done, and they split the teams, and half worked on this, and half worked on Rayman 3. So... which I'm a huge Rayman 3 fan. Love that game.
We both are. We're debating one of the things for this, the contenders for the slot is Rayman 2. He's never played 2.
Yeah.
We've both played 3 though.
Yeah, 3 was one of my favorite games growing up.
Yeah, I loved it.
I have never played Beyond Good and Evil though. How would you classify this game?
I think it's an action adventure.
I would say the exact same words.
Yeah, it's akin to not quite as puzzle heavy, but akin to a more classic 3D Zelda game. Even something as old as Majora's Mask. Even
I would push it closer to what we would eventually see become the Uncharted's and the Tomb Raiders.
Yeah, it's evolving on that, but it's pretty old. It's not,
I'm just saying, it's hard to call it a Zelda game. You're not, getting items and
it's not as puzzle
going
heavy
through dungeons. There are dungeons, but it's the same loop through every dungeon. It's not like changing,
I suppose.
And what it is very Zelda in is its little overworld. Not a lot to do, but just enough,
Just enough.
Not even as much as Majora's Mask, but there is stuff to do. The little pedestrian district is great. We'll talk about it. So what stood out to me with this game, this is why I structured it this way. So we went through Prince of Persia, and we talked about how the first thing stood out was the platforming, and then the combat, and then the world, and then like the heart, the things like that ended up hitting me harder than I thought. Total inverse for this game. It was by the end where I was going, oh, there's no platforming. Like, it's not a platformer. But at the beginning...
There's not even a jump button.
At the very beginning, though, I was immediately struck by... I don't think there are very few things that have engaged me into its sense of place as quickly and efficiently as this game did.
Yep.
It is a new creative world. It's its own thing. It stands out for that reason. But the music, the diversity of the cast, like just a weird bunch of characters with very little explanation. They're not telling you what's going on, really. It's just there. Seriously, I was blown away. Right out the gate, you go to Mama Go's garage. Everybody talks about Mama Go's.
And they're like Rasta rhinos.
They're Rasta rhinos. That's exactly what they are. It's so fun.
So silly.
Yeah, and then the little little drums in the background, like when they come and tell you, it's like Mama Go's garage, and that's been stuck in my head for the whole past week. But it immediate sense of character to this game. So it's funny how it was the other way around entirely playing this game for me. What were your first impressions playing this game?
The world as well, and the sense of place. Really, just the entire sort of tone of the game is made readily apparent. It is dealing with some more serious concepts than you typically see in a game of that era, or rather, let me correct that, a game with this art style and sort of the tone that it has. But underneath the tone is those more adult concepts. It's dealing with
conspiracy.
Conspiracies,
abduction.
A little bit of a, not really slavery, but maybe you could lump that in there as well.
Forced servitude. In some sense, I guess.
And government cover-ups. And you're a journalist. You're not some soldier. There's some very light combat, but you're a journalist that is involved with a small, scrappy resistance group, and your weapon is your camera. You take pictures, you send them to your headquarters, and they publish a weekly or however frequently it is. Basically newsletter saying, look, we're getting closer to whatever the conspiracy is, where it's happening. Look what the government is doing. And then aliens.
And then
'Cause I like
aliens, man. Always aliens.
Now,
The Doms.
the Doms, yes. I love the aliens here. I really love the whole world.
Yeah.
But it really isn't till the end that you... Spoilers, by the way. We didn't say that for the last one, but whatever. If it's of a certain age... Sorry, guys.
Unless it's, like, very obviously a story, like, thing. Like, yeah. Well, anyway.
Well, the ending. You finally get to see the aliens, and I love how a lot of the sort of whimsy that came from the art direction of Rayman is actually still present here. And it's not so much that the characters are so outlandish, it's the way things are drawn, the sort of proportions of things, the shapes of the buildings, all of that whimsy is still there, but in a completely different setting. And I love that. I think the world is so well presented. I love the little city place, the pedestrian district. You finally get to see the aliens, and they maintain some of that whimsy. But it's like Rayman, whoever the lead, the art director is on Rayman, his take on Geiger.
Yeah,
and I love it.
Or like Francis Bacon, if you guys know who that is.
It's so unique.
Yeah.
I really, really like the aliens in this game, especially that last fight at the end, which we'll talk about combat, but that's just one of the things that I really like, the art in general.
Yeah, I mean...
And you talked about music and endings. The ending was so good, and I watched the entirety of the credits.
Yeah, same.
That's the best music. I wish that was in the game.
Yeah.
The 2 songs that play during the credits are far and away the best tracks. They are so good.
But, I mean, that's not to discredit the music in the game.
No.
Like, there are these soft piano tracks that start playing, and these... All of a sudden, you'll have this full voice chorus. Dun, dun. Like, just like, you're like, what is going on? Like, no, not like that. It's what we call good. But it's, no, seriously, it surprised me. And it was immediate, like right out the gate. I love they have this kind of, they have this theme song for the bar that is fantastic. Gets stuck in your head so fast. I can see why this became why this rose to cult status, like, because it didn't sell anything when it came out. It was barely marketed, from my understanding. So to see, like, it makes so much sense why this is a cult classic. It has that personality that you need in something like that, where it's not perfect, it's got its problems, but that core
and
sense of
really
personality
does it justice is that those problems, honestly, are not felt throughout. There is one section here that is a massive blemish on this game. Honestly, I pretty much hate it. Not just for it being bad, but also what it means and what it does in context to the rest of the game. Because the slaughterhouse is what we're talking about, which we will definitely get into that. Because it just takes away from all the other great things about the game, even though, there are some shortcomings here and there. If that wasn't there, honestly, I think I would love this game. Because the beginning and the end, I do love. I really, really enjoy them.
And, I mean, let's just kind of keep going. So, I mean, again, it's that inverse order of recognition from with Prince of Persia. The next thing, is the combat, or... it wasn't in Prince of Persia, but stealth, I'd loop into that category as well.
Just one of the encounter loops.
Because the combat's not bad. It's a button mashy, you just keep hitting your attack button, and you change your direction to hit.
And you can dodge out of the way, or you can, dodge attack. Instead of dodging in a direction, you can attack backwards, and she'll do a backflip and attack the enemy with that dodge animation.
Yeah.
And dodging those directions, it feels good. It is simple. It's a...
You can have your companion knock some certain enemies up in the air, and you can launch them just very,
to hit
very
other
basic.
enemies. It's for what it is. Early 2000s, early PS2 action adventure, not platformer. It's good. I set my expectations. I knew what I was getting into, and those aspects didn't, detract from my experience.
And it's not a lot of the game, even. It's a very small portion of the game is combat. It's a lot more focused on exploration and, unfortunately, stealth.
Yes.
The stealth in this game is very prevalent, basically from the first dungeon on. You are crouching, you have a crouch button and a run button. You're pretty much just crouching and waiting for guard rotations that are always on the same path, and you either need to stealthily take them out, or just make your way through. That's really what the game is asking you to do. And it's so simple that, just like the combat, it's so simple that it was just a couple spots, it wouldn't matter. It'd be a fun little change of pace. It is the primary method of progression for the player. Like, you will be going through stealth sections, which I get what they're going for. You're trying to be that clandestine reporter, right? Uncovering the truth or whatever. But there's just not enough to that stealth system to make it engaging.
Yeah, it's the same single enemy.
The same enemy every time.
There are, I think, 3 enemies in the game, maybe 4, but in terms of the stealth, there is one enemy. It is one type of guard that can only be taken out one way. Or, actually, I found out at the very last part of the game that you could do one more thing. You get a strong attack. You can buy an upgrade to your strong attack, which allows you to, like, shoot missiles out as you're doing the spin attack. I didn't know about that until I bought the thing. I don't know, I didn't read it properly, whatever. I just missed it. And it wasn't until I was like, how do I do this? I was looking online and saw someone do the thing. I was already on the moon. I'd already ended the game, basically. I would have made things way better.
Yeah, again, it's just so simple that if it was just a couple spots, it wouldn't even matter. Just be a fun little break of pace.
Or if it was implemented better. Because actually one of my favorite parts about the game is a stealth section. It's the last, what do they call the alpha sections? So it's the last part in the city that you get to go through. It's their last encounter, and it is just a long stealth section, but it doesn't involve so much trial and error as the rest of them. It feels like a good.
You're like dropping down onto laser platforms, like trying to time when you're dropping. There's another section where there's just so many guards, and you're like, sneaking underneath. There's more spectacle to it too.
That's the thing. Yeah, if it made it like, if it involved more set pieces, like something akin to Uncharted, which you already brought up, I think it would have been better. But they try to present it as serious stealth, and it isn't. And if they could have done something like they did in that final encounter, it would have been more fun. Or like they did...
You know what game does it great?
The elevator that you mentioned.
Yes.
That was... Even though you had a bit of a hiccup there...
It's still well designed. It's a good...
That was... and it's well telegraphed. So there's an elevator with 3 crates on it. And as this elevator is rising, there's different windows with guards in it on whatever side of the elevator you can't see, because it's sort of almost a top-down view, and you can't see the well of the elevator. So it's going up, and the light that comes through those windows that the guards will be posted in, is causing the shadows of the crates to shift. So I'm going to have to get behind the crate in this direction. And it's great. It's a good little set piece.
One of the guards will walk out onto the elevator. Oh, yeah. Like, there's good tension building. It works well.
And if they could just do more of that.
You know what? We're talking about stealth, and it's not a stealth game, obviously, but Sly 2 and 3. They're very much platformers with fun little gameplay sections thrown in here and there. But when they do stealth, it is very simple. It's pretty much the same handful of enemies, more than just one, but same kind of handful of enemy types. But it is looped in between, tank sections, or a section where you're bouncing around as a giant ball, like, and it's never it's more robust than this, but they're always implementing it a little different ways. They're either a new enemy or a new location where you're also having to, like, now you have to pretend to be a statue while they walk by and they move by.
Yeah, I've seen that in some trailers.
There's like different things they'll throw into it to keep it very fresh as you keep going through the game. I think that is a better example of how it could be implemented well. Even
in the first dungeon, like, it's fine. It's not like till you get to the slaughterhouse.
Yeah,
and then on the moon, I don't think there's any stealth on the moon.
I don't think so.
So, really, it's the slaughterhouse that throws everything off.
Because it's all stealth, and it's huge, and it takes forever.
It's so long. It's the longest portion of the game. Longer than maybe the other 2 major sections combined. It's huge. Takes forever, and is riddled with issues.
Camera issues too, man.
The camera is so bad only in the slaughterhouse. And there's so much stealth, unvaried stealth, the same enemy, the same thing over and over. Like, honestly, as bad as the combat in Prince of Persia that we talked about in the DLC, where it shows you all of the problems. The reason this game isn't great for me, the reason I don't love it, is because of the slaughterhouse. I love the characters, I love the world, the gameplay. You set your expectations to early PS2 game, it's good. It's the freaking slaughterhouse, man.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? I've noticed we're probably not going to talk as long about this game, just compared to Prince of Persia, because I'm trying to identify why, and I think a lot of it is this is an early concept of games that we are very used to seeing. Think of every AAA open world game now. Mm-hmm. They have some stealth elements, they have some basic combat elements, and those are the minimums, right? For any, if you focus more on one, that's great. But, in Horizon Zero Dawn, there are
having a crouch button is almost obligatory.
Yeah, you need to be able to crouch and walk through some tall grass so the dinosaurs don't see you.
The right, what R3 is for.
That is
for crouch.
The crouch button in every third-person AAA action game. Done. It's just, that's it. Assassin's Creed stealth is more robust than this, but still very minimal. And it's from Ubisoft. But, I can see...
It shook it up, though. You sit on a bench, you go into
walk
a group
through some
of
crowds,
monks.
Yeah. Exactly, that's my point, is...
or the
we weren't sick of trailing missions yet.
Not yet, no.
No, I remember...
Little, tents on top of buildings. I forget. I remember. I don't know what those are called, but anyway, you can jump into those.
Yeah.
Do people, have sex in those? Just, out on your rooftop?
Well, the rooftop, I know, from Jewish history, is considered was the public place, especially for the king. Your roof is a public place. So in order to assert his dominance over his father after Absalom kicked David out, he had sex with all of his father's concubines on the roof, so everyone could see it happen.
Well,
yeah. Some biblical history for you. There you go, everyone. This is the bonus on the Unpatched Gaming
Now you
podcast.
have to go to some weird, shady places to get shows like that.
Exactly. It's a gosh darn shame. No,
Why can't my pastor be out on the rooftop?
Yeah, exactly. What is this weak religion? Incredible. We love you. All of you. So anyway, that's kind of the last big note I have, is talking about how I think the reason we're not talking about this as much is because it is the shadow of things to come. And it makes me wonder what the sequel would end up looking like. Is
a
it
sequel to this game, not whatever Beyond Good and Evil 2 may be if it ever comes out, but a sequel to
I'm talking about this game.
Beyond Good and Evil 2 as we expect it to be based on the gameplay we got, 3 or 4 years ago.
Live service.
That's not this. It's not a sequel to this. It may be just in the world, the setting, it's got quirky anthropomorphic characters.
The gameplay will be so different, though.
Yeah, it's not a sequel to this.
And that's why I'm curious what a sequel to this would look like. I bet you it would either be more robust stealth or fewer stealth sections and maybe more set piece sections. And it would start to look set pieces. What Uncharted 1 would eventually do with the action-adventure genre.
And you should be able to see it, but the section I'm talking about is a big set-piece stealth section, and at the end of that, it changes to a side view, and you're running and jumping on the rooftops as bombs are coming down on you, the city's being destroyed under you.
They're, chasing you, trying to catch you.
Yeah, it's good. It's fun. It looks great, and also... It's the only time you get to see the city sort of in that light, at nighttime, but also just from that point of view. It's a really different take on the city, and the pedestrian district is so small. There's a couple guards posted outside, but it's showing you now that this entire city is overrun by the Alpha section, this government army. And yeah, it just shines the whole thing in a new light, and also is a fun set piece. So I like that a lot. The world is great. I don't know.
Sorry, it's not a platformer.
Sorry, it's not a platformer, and sorry we just can't dive too deep into it because You've seen and heard it all.
That's it. That's Beyond Good and Evil. I know it's a cult classic. I'm not sure I can jump on that bandwagon. I don't think I'd recommend this game to anyone. I don't think I would. Not only because of its problems, but I just don't think that beating heart, that wonderful world lasts. That initial feeling of wonder was gone pretty quick for me, and they weren't able to reestablish it as strongly. So I just don't think there's enough there for me to go, you should play this game, unless you just want to see an interesting piece of action-adventure history that got lost and probably inspired a lot of the later action-adventure titles. I can feel some influences from this game in those games.
I will say some of that wonder was reestablished. It does go away pretty quickly. It's hard to deny. It was reestablished there at the end. Once I did have everything unlocked, I did that final platforming section that stealth section I keep bringing up. Really, it's my favorite part of the game. I think it does that version of stealth right, and is a fun platforming piece. I already said. Action set piece. It shows the entire world in a new way that wasn't there before. So getting to see that this is actually a government occupied city, that wonder that I got in the beginning was presented in a new light. And then you get to the moon, and some of the section is fine, but when you really get to the final encounter and see what the Doms actually are, and they're straight up this Geiger-esque alien race,
puppeteer thing.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So that's great, but you've got like 3 or 4 hours of the slaughterhouse, which is controlling a really bad vehicle, terrible camera, terrible stealth, terrible combat, terrible everything that could go wrong in this game is shown and just exasperated in that section, and it's a huge blight on the game. So I did get some of that wonder at the end. I wouldn't recommend it. No, unfortunately not. Yeah. And I'm sorry. We both see why you love it. If you are one of those fans, I get it, because you played it then. But we're playing this for the first time in 2021, and it is so rough.
Yeah, and I can accept rough. I think it's just too inconsistent, and
that's a big deal. Yeah, the inconsistency.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is for me. But all that to say, I do get it. And that initial sense of wonder is something I haven't gotten from very many games. I'm glad that this one was able to establish that.
Literally the first second.
Immediately. It is so strong. It's really well done. I respect it a lot. But I got nothing else to say.
Yeah. Did you finish the credits?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So they leave it on a cliffhanger. They open it up for a sequel.
Yeah.
With Paige getting
a little
overrun by the Doms.
Yeah.
I really like that credit sequence as well.
Yeah, it's beautiful,
it's very
panning
nice
through the images in the lighthouse and stuff. Yeah. It's great. But yeah, that's it for me, man.
That's it. That was probably our shortest section ever, I think.
Not much to say?
Not much, unfortunately. So we want to say thank you for joining us. We do have a bit of a bonus. Finally, we are jumping back into our Hitman series with the tutorial and first level of Hitman 2. So stick around for that. We will be back in just a second.
And we are back.
Back with Hitman.
Talking about Hitman 2 for the first time. I'm so excited to talk about this game. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the little intro level that they have. And the first thing stood out to me, compared to Hitman 1, is the atmosphere. The atmosphere was much more, I felt a lot more in the role of him. If it was less of just a fun, let's just walk through and have some fun. It was very I gotta be sneaky, and there's this house on this huge beach. And
it felt
mountains
like espionage was happening now.
Yeah, it felt really good. They established that tone really well. Very simple opening level. I mean, it's really meant so that you can just go, well, how can I kill this person? A million different ways. It is so easy.
I only went through it once, and I killed her.
Yeah, I went through it once as well. I wanted to get right into it.
Excuse me. Me too. I wanted to jump into the what everyone talks about when they talk about Hitman 2. But I killed her immediately. So she comes into the door, and she's going to do several things around the house, just like any other target. She's got a routine she's going to go through, but it takes her so long to walk from her car to the front door. You can get in position on this second floor balcony, and you can take her out and still hide the second she opens the door. I don't even think she had put her coat away yet. She just walks next to the door and hangs her coat, but it's just like wide open.
I had a little more fun. I just kind of messed around with her for a little bit and then got away. And it was a fun getaway. They were guarding the getaway point, so you had to be, smart about it. You lure them over to the car and then shoot the car. It'll blow up. Yeah, there's a couple different ways you can handle it.
You can take the weapon I took out with me was I don't know what exactly it was, but it was like a Maui oar. I took that off the wall, and you can just throw this giant oar at people.
Yeah, it's really satisfying. It just kind of teaches you that, don't just wait for the game to do something for you. Think about it and do it yourself. It's a great little tutorial. It doesn't hit you over the head very much like not this is how to play the game. It's more this is how the game should be played kind of tutorial, which I appreciate. I mean, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
But let's just go right ahead into Miami, because I finished Miami 6 times.
I did, I think, 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
I didn't finish it a few other times.
Oh, no. Finished at 5. I didn't finish my last run, now that I think about it. I finished at 5. Yeah. So here's what... And I know you feel a little differently about Miami.
Surprisingly, and maybe that's just because of how hyped it's been. I don't see it as so different to the rest of... Well, Hitman 1. I don't see it as so hugely different.
So there are a couple things that stand out to me when compared to Hitman 1. First of all, the obvious one is just how massive and openly crowded these spaces are. There were people, a good chunk of, or a crowd of people in multiple sections of the other maps. Every portion of this map until you get into the building is just packed.
It's a sequel.
And it's
that happens.
Colorful. And it's a huge place. Very, very good. I think some of their strongest telegraphing of where you can and can't be, how to get there. Some of the best of that. But what I think makes this level stand out, and what really does it for me, is the race. So you have this race going on, and if you just sit there and do nothing, your target, who's the female race car driver, she will lose, and the male race car driver, Moses, right? I think his name is, her rival will win. He'll win. If you just leave it alone, and she'll stomp off and get mad, and you can, find a couple ways to kill her that way. You can then, though, influence the race. You can influence it so she wins. And when she wins, she has an entirely separate routine that she goes through.
How do you influence a win?
There are a couple different ways. So the easiest way is if you get into the pit and disguise as one of her guys, or as one of his guys. You can basically call a pit stop and screw up his wheels, and he'll drive off and crash.
Interesting.
Yeah, or you can dump sugar into his gas tank.
Yeah, I found the sugar a few times.
Yeah.
So would they stop for pit stops?
Yeah. You can go and wait, and you can stop for pits. They'll stop for a pit stop whenever you when you have all your stuff ready. You'll say ready for the pit stop, and you'll wait, and then they'll come for the pit stop, and then you do what you want to them. So he'll lose. She'll win, and now she has this whole separate routine. My favorite way to kill her is you can poison the victory goblet. So she'll win and come up and go yeah, thanks everybody, and she'll drink it and just fall dead right there. It's so
that's
good.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, so I think that's the main thing, is the race, because not only is it this system where she now has 2 separate routines entirely, but it's a system that you can interact with even outside of just messing with her. You can kill her on the track, and Moses will still win. You can just stop Moses from winning. There's a couple different ways you can handle it. You can go and mess around in the other people's pits, too. It's just fun. It's a good, huge space.
If you go down in the dressing rooms, you can get the Ghost Rider, or the Phantom Rider.
I didn't do this.
Yeah, it's just a stark white, pit suit and a stark white helmet, but you can just walk around as Ghost Rider.
I got I think his name's Robert. I'm not sure, but he's the big exec who's always wandering the upstairs. My initial favorite way of killing him was he's developing this robot that is like a combat robot and based on facial recognition.
Yeah.
And you can just slide a little
that's
picture.
the first one I did.
Yeah, it's my favorite because you can just like, it's so clean. It's so
He's like, all you need to do is like select the face that you want to for the robots to attack, but you have already submitted his face as the target.
And so it just turns in pop, 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 like really unceremoniously.
Yeah, but he also like it looks at him and he's like, oh shit.
Yeah, it's like this moment.
He knows exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I really enjoy that way. But my favorite I found is you can lure him down out of the building.
Yeah.
You can get him out of the building because he likes going to eat at this one little food stand. And you can basically... this guy's waiting for a delivery of some sugar, and you dress up as the right guy, and you bring it to him. And which is... not part of his routine. You're like influencing his routine, same as the race. There are these two totally separate routines happening, but they actually can converge in different ways. And I think that's the elegance of that level, is how massive it is, but how every piece of the map matters and how much you can influence the routines going on. Not even just the routines of the target, the routines of the race and the...
Maybe. I didn't experience that with the race, and I say maybe. No, you obviously know. I did not experience that. I didn't know you could influence the race, actually. I didn't know where to get on the track. Like,
you can't actually get on the track. You have to get into their garage and then wait for the pit stop to happen.
Yeah, I didn't know the pit stop was happening.
Also, though, I mean, I have just straight up shot Moses on... Like, I grabbed a sniper rifle... And I took out the guards across that like section you can stand on. I just waited. It took like 50 tries. It took so many tries, but I finally got it. I'm not a good shot, but I finally got it. You can either go for his wheel or just like try to get straight in the head. Like you can just try to kill him. And she just keeps driving. She's like, no, not happening. Like she just finishes the race.
Well, you can do that to her as well, right?
Oh yeah, you can take her out too. It was more fun.
I tried it. You couldn't line it up. I tried throwing a dead body over that catwalk.
Oh my goodness!
For the car to get hit by, but it doesn't line up. You can't throw anything over there.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
That's where you need a good old Metal Gear 5. You can carry a body. You can straight up just like actually chunk it. Like it'll knock guards out if you hit them with the other body.
Wow.
So you can just like chunk the body at them.
So can you put the experimental like NOS or whatever it is into the car during a pit stop?
So I don't know. I didn't get to try that. That was the one I was going to try on my last run.
I didn't kill her with that, but I did use that on my very last playthrough. The last time I killed her with poison. Just you can get like a syringe.
Yeah.
It was a lame way to kill her. There's a sort of situation happening with the current mascot is some guy that's also out to kill her. You can get involved in that with the press, and then he's got like, I don't know, maybe he's got some nudes or something, whatever. He's got some dirt on her, and she decides to meet you privately. You can kill her
in a flamingo outfit.
Yeah, you can kill her in that flamingo outfit, and then just leave.
Well, she also has some medical problems. You can start messing around with that, but I think she has to lose for that to happen. Yeah,
because she goes into the her like penthouse and she like swipes away her champagne. She gets really mad and angry.
Yeah.
Mad and angry. Yeah.
Mangry.
And that's where you can poison her water bottle, or you can just kill her in there if you took out the guards, which I did. This was actually one of my favorite things about this level. It's very silly. This is really dumb. You can be any form of guard. So there's like the cops and then her personal guards. So you can be any one of those, and there's only like a person that will notice you. But it doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what's happening, her best friend will notice you.
Yes. Every time.
Probably because she's sleeping with all of the guards. And she knows their faces more than like the bosses know their faces.
Yeah.
I think that's why that is.
That was a
very good touch.
Yeah. It makes it more fun and more challenging.
Yeah.
But yeah, being able to take certain people out of the equation, break some routines, get her into that hospital area faster, and it's really clean. There's a lot you can do there. That's why I like it so much. Is you're right, it is more of what Hitman 1 was doing, but on a far bigger scale and far more interlocking. That's what I like about it. The interplay between the systems.
I'd have to play both of them again, but like, are people forgetting Colorado?
I still think this one had
It had 4 targets and was, I think, not a more densely packed, but I think a bigger environment.
But the 4 targets don't really, like...
That's why I have to replay it. I don't know if they intersect like these two do, or I'm not quite sure the level that you can influence that. I don't know. But that was definitely the most robust level from that game.
I agree. And it was good, and I had a blast with it. But... I don't know, man. I think that this just not only from scale, but just in terms of the cleanliness of the design, the incredible amount of variety, and again, I'll keep coming back to it, man. It's that race, and just the fact that there are totally different outcomes based on how you influence something that doesn't even involve killing the target. Like this system, I think the more and more they start messing with that stuff, because they did it on smaller scales with little tiny routines. You can remove something and the target will skip it or do something different. But this is like an entirely separate set of things will occur based on how you influence this race. And I really want to mess with that race more, honestly. I want to find more ways to influence that. But... yeah, I mean, honestly, there are better videos than me blabbing, talking about why I think it's better.
Yeah, I'm sure videos will go like 45 minutes into
Game Maker's Toolkit has an entire episode just on Miami.
Maybe I should watch it again. I'm sure I watched it back in the day, but
yeah.
I just, on my playthroughs, I mean, I didn't even know you can influence the race, so that's a big deal. That detracts from my experience.
But even so, nothing you've said has said this is not good. It is just still more good.
I just don't see why it's like
the level,
the example of Hitman.
Yeah,
because Colorado did that for me.
Yeah,
I mean Sapienza even. That was the second level, I believe.
I really like Sapienza.
I loved Sapienza.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
But that was the first time people were like, "Oh, we get it now." And then Colorado, I think, was really bringing that all to a head. And I just think it's not bad. I liked this level a lot. I just don't see why it is the greatest thing in the series.
Yeah, and we'll see how... I'm really excited for the little suburb community level.
That's one I'm most excited for.
Yeah, me too. So we'll see how that
I hope there are like families there. Like,
oh yeah, dude! Like,
kids
you have to,
playing in the street and stuff.
Like you got to deal with it.
Yeah,
I agree.
Just like a Saturday morning with like mom on the porch watching the kids in the street. Just stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just like the white woman that's gonna call the cops.
It's that kid on the tricycle who sees Mr. Incredible lift the car.
Yes.
That was totally wicked.
Oh my god. What if there is like one of the paths you can take will get you seen by a kid who is going to go rat on you?
Oh my goodness.
Like you have to intercept that somehow.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll go there.
There's no way the game will let you kill him.
No, of course
There's
not.
no way.
No, I'm not saying I want to, but influencing that would be interesting.
Just like push him over. Just call it, like, start calling him names.
Yeah, but you'd be able to, it would let you take his parents out.
Oh, for sure.
So, that'd just be an interesting
ruin
dynamic.
that child's life. Yeah, that sounds like a great video game.
He witnesses a murder, then he goes and reports it to his parents, and because he witnessed it and reported it, his parents then get murdered.
It
seems like a good child. Yeah, just like be a better kid. Anyway,
only good morals here on the Unpatched Gaming Podcast. Yeah, man. I'm glad that we kicked off Hitman 2 finally.
We're gonna have to double up on some episodes.
Probably.
We were a little behind with that one.
Yeah,
and not gonna have time in October, unfortunately.
Oh, no way. Not even a little bit.
Yeah, it's gonna be a packed year.
We're excited to share it with you guys, though. That's our whole shtick, after all.
Yes. Sharing games, sharing what you love with who you love. Don't forget to do that, folks. Yeah. I don't think we do that enough. And that's pretty much it. It's a good level. I'm sorry I didn't really get it.
It's definitely my favorite so far.
I'm going to watch the Game Maker's Toolkit again.
I'm going to jump on that bandwagon. I'll agree. I think it's my favorite so far, if only for the scale and the intersection of systems. A little more elegant for me. I've had the most fun replaying this one. This is the one I was most eager to go back and just keep influencing, again, primarily because of that race. So, yeah, that's all I got to say about it. It's a good level. You should play it.
Indeed. All right, so... we do this at the end of every cast, or at least we try to remember to. Definitely give us a like. If you've listened to us this far, come on. A like and also subscribe does help a lot. If you are a new subscriber or just a new viewer, witnessing our podcast here after our sort of growth on Instagram this past week, I want to thank you for joining us. We are very happy to have you, and we want to encourage you to join that Discord community. It is slowly growing.
We need some people to help build it.
Yes, the $2 tier on Patreon. Again, it's there to keep the lights on. And I know people say that as just like a funny thing to say, but literally the lights. We've got studio lights here. Those do die occasionally, and if they're cheap enough, just break apart because they're cheap plastic. So actually to keep the lights on, and we'd love to have you join. Tell us about why we're incorrect about Beyond Good and Evil, or if you agree, what about it really elevated it for you regardless of those things. We'd love to hear it, and we'd really appreciate your subscription here on YouTube and a review on whatever platform you might be listening on.
A good review.
Yeah. Or a negative review, that's fine, but 5 stars.
Yeah,
we need the 5 stars.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah. But thanks for watching us.
It's all about the money, boys. No, thanks for watching.
We'll be back soon. A little bit of, housekeeping. I forgot to mention this at the beginning. Our schedule is going to be pushed back just a little bit. We will be changing our schedule behind the scenes, which means this next release is going to be a little later than normal, but from there it'll be more consistent moving forward. So thanks for the patience between last episode and now, and we hope to see you next time as we continue our Nontendo series. We'll see you guys.